Hi guys, this is my Hugelculture bed. You may have seen it being built in a couple of other videos. Basically, you just take rotten firewood, stack it on the ground, and cover it in layers with soil. And in theory, if what I've read is true, you don't have to water it at all throughout the summer, even through August. So, basically used composted steer manure for the soil, or some of the soil, and just woody debris that I've collected around the property over the last year and a half. And this material that's covering the outside is from those pine trees over there. Pine isn't the best mulch, yeah, I know, but you know, part of the principles of permaculture is use what you've got on site. And I've got mostly lettuces, and I got some Brussels sprouts, and man, I've got a lot of lettuces, and I got a little bit of squash too. I need to put some other things in here. I mean, there's plenty of room. So anyway, it looks like the starts have lived through 2 days of being in the bed. None of them seem to be wilted that much. So we'll see what happens. And over here you have a sheet mulched bed, which last year I threw cardboard down last fall and covered it with pine and dead leaves and grass clippings and whatever else was handy, and that suppressed the weeds, except for that one. and then basically when I was digging in here to plant my beans and my potatoes, I found that the cardboard is like 98% gone. Every once in a while there's a little piece of cardboard in there, but it's pretty much been turned into soil now. So I will see what happens. I don't see any beans coming up. I dug in there a little bit and saw that they were just sprouting. So 2 or 3 weeks ago when I planted, it must have been too cold for them. So they just sort of have a little temperature sensor and decide when to light off. So this should be a good asset to the property for like 6 or 7 years. In places where there is cold weather, like seriously cold weather, where it freezes hard for like months in the wintertime, Hugelculture beds last longer. But here in the Northwest, you never really freeze the ground. So basically bacterial activity and breakdown processes continue, and then your bed shrinks over time. And so then basically, I mean, it worked good to turn that material into soil, but the teeth which the soil basically has teeth in the form of earthworms and insects and things like that, and of course bacteria and fungi. But it basically eats what's on top of it if it's organic and if it's not alive. So basically it turns it into soil, which is cool. In the Northwest you can build soil quick, but you can't keep it as well. So organic matter in the soil is constantly being lost into the atmosphere, like turned into nitrogen and carbon dioxide and outgassed into the atmosphere. So that's the downside of living in a place that doesn't freeze really hard. But you can build soil pretty quick, and there's certainly a lot of material around because it sure grows. So good times, that. And then of course I got I threw a couple of squash plants into my bed down there, and I've got second year raspberry canes growing. And these are canes that grew last year, which we planted, and basically they grow up, and the first year raspberries don't produce fruit, but the second year they do. So the thing with, I'm sure you guys have seen blackberries, like what I've got down there. They turn into this giant tangled mess of dead canes and living canes and first and second year growth, and it's pretty nasty. Well, anyway, raspberries are related to them, but you can get all mixed up, and then you could end up in a situation where you have this giant tangled mess of raspberries too. And the trick is to separate and keep track of the first and second year canes, so that when the second year canes produce fruit and then they die that fall, you know which ones they are, and then you can just snip them out and compost them, right? Whereas and then of course the first year canes, which are being produced from the roots of the raspberry plant. This one's a little far out, but and there's one down there and over there, and what I'll be able to do is I'll be able to direct them up onto the trellis, and then maybe do a little zigzag action to make sure that you use the maximum surface area. Then the additional, which there is going to be, they grow like nuts. But anyway, the additional footage, I'll just have to trim it off, and kind of like a hedge, and you'll have to prune it. So I'll have raspberries off of these first year canes over here, and then these second year canes are going to go up, and they're going to try to take over almost certainly, and I will do my best to keep them separate from the the second year canes. And then next year, or this fall, after they produce, I'll just snip all of the first year canes, remove them, and then the first year canes will be second year canes next year, and there's going to be a lot of them then, and probably a whole wall of green. and then basically the next year I will have 1.5 tons of raspberries. But ramping up the production of raspberries you don't get anything the first year. The second year you get a little bit from the first year canes, and then the third year you got a wall of freaking raspberries, and they will produce like nuts if what I've read is correct. You're talking to a guy here who is just getting out of a condo. So I'm not an expert in gardening, but I've read a lot. It's been like porn, right? I was sitting in my condo reading about permaculture and organic gardening. Kind of like a junior high school boy looking at Playboy magazines. Well, anyway, I got a couple of tomato plants over there, and I'm going to get some more, and I'm going to dig about 1.5 feet deep or more, maybe 2 feet, and then plant the thing at the very bottom, right? And then I'll be able to throw organic matter and compost and banana peels and eggshells, whatever I've got handy, in there. And then as the soil builds up, eventually it'll be level, and then the plants just go nuts. Tomato plants are unique. They have this cool ability to just beat into totally non-composted organic matter and crack into there and retrieve the nutrients even from something that isn't broken down yet. Like, it'll jam a root into a banana peel and start sucking out the goodness. And then the hairs on the sides of the plant, you can probably see it if you get really close here. They have the capability of turning into roots. You can probably see them down there. Anyway, so as soon as they detect that they are underground, they immediately change their programming, I suppose, and become a root and start shooting roots out everywhere. And when I have a root system which is 1.5 feet or 2 feet deep in that bed, and on top of that I have sheet mulched cardboard and and that more of that pine mulch over there over the whole thing, that will prevent evaporation almost. And then all of the water which has been coming down off of the roof and dropping through the gutters and stuff and is being pushed and forced underground into these beds, this property sequesters a lot of water underground. And anyway, it will basically have all of that water available to the tomatoes. And just like last year, I won't have to water those things all year, even through August. It's those people who do the normal American gardening, where you buy fertilizer and you have a rototiller and rototill the crap out of your soil, kill every worm in the soil, and then you basically just like murder the whole ecosystem under the soil. And then of course all of those plants and animals and fungi, they break down. The bacteria basically attack all of the dying and dead organisms, and then that turns it into nitrogen. It starts releasing nitrogen into the soil, and the plants are able to suck up maybe a few percentage points of that, and then you get awesome, fantastic growth the first year. And then if you do it again, if next year you plow again, or you rototill again, you will just be constantly destroying the ecosystem, and then pretty soon, after a while, all of that organic matter will be gone, and all you'll have is sand and rocks and plants that are just barely struggling along. So the way to do it is to properly, the garbage truck's here. The way to do it properly is to feed the soil by putting things on top of the soil. You can prepare the soil a little bit beforehand if you like, maybe even rototill it once and get the rocks out and stuff, and get the texture right. Then after that, I'm not even doing that on a lot of the property, like along that bed over there. Cardboard, mulch, done. And it's an easy way of doing it too. But basically, you feed the soil, and then the soil feeds your plants, and you don't have to worry about buying Monsanto friggin' fertilizers. And then of course, if you throw fertilizers in there, it has a lot of salts and mineral salts in there. And what happens to you when you eat a lot of excess salt? You sort of plump up and bloat up, right? And then then you become, or the plant becomes very tasty looking and appetizing to the disease or to the pest insect, and then they just land on there and lay eggs and go to town. It's like a party for them. Then you have a whole row of that, of their favorite food is, all in a line, with bare soil and nothing else visible. Then they just go nuts. And then of course you have to buy Monsanto friggin' pesticides and spray poisons all over your food, right? And that's not the MGTOW way of doing things. So basically, the best way to do it is to use the natural systems to feed your soil, and basically use the natural pest facilities that nature provides to basically keep the pests that do find your produce, keep them off. For example, last year when I had massive broccoli plants right in here, I would have yellow jackets. Hey Dad, how's it going? Okay, well anyway, then you have to use pesticides. But anyway, then I had yellow jackets swarming all over these plants, looking at every single hole in the leaves, looking for what made the hole. And then I had, I was here once when I saw a yellow jacket grab something and land on this little fence post here, and then And I got a close-up, and it looked like it was eating a little tiny worm about maybe a quarter of an inch long. So, and there's a big ugly hedge in front of the house that basically has it has nests of yellow jackets and honeybees in it. Well, I guess that's about it. So anyway, this is how I get free food that's actually not poison, and it's not covered with pesticides, and it's ultra freaking nutrient dense. And basically, if you could be like half dead, and if you eat a diet that has a lot of this material in it or this produce in it, you will come back to health. There's like places you can go, like permaculture communities that actually, where people's cancer goes into remission. And currently our society, the people in our society are under a great deal of physical stress because of this really nasty food. And of course the chlorine in the water and the fluoride in the water, you know, just poison after poison after poison. And then basically they wonder why people are having lower IQs, and they're feeling listless, and they get really obese. And it's because we don't have the nutrients, and we're subjected to massive amounts of poison in our systems. Well, I guess I better get out of here. So see ya.